everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mission Brain podcast. I'm your host, live from the City of Lights in Karachi, Pakistan, and we have a very special guest today. We have Miss Sheila Sichani Thai. I hope I got that right. And today
Perfect. You nailed it.
we're going to see neurosurgery from an entirely new perspective. Healthcare is not just about doctors. I know we've just covered doctors in our last episodes, but this time we're going to take the second or the other half of healthcare, which is our patients. And healthcare innovation is important, healthcare delivery is important, but at the end of the day, it's our patients who matter the most. And today, we're going to share that story with all of you. And we're very grateful to Miss Sheila for coming up to this podcast and sharing her story. So, Sheila, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone, to the Mission Brain, or again, anyone who watches these podcasts. Thank you, Ali, for having me. I know it took a while to get me on here. I'm Sheila Sichani Tai. I had joined Mission Brain a couple years ago. I did take a step back from the board because I unfortunately had my third surgery as well as a newborn. So, she's currently being watched, but she's been great, and I'm currently in this postpartum slash post-surgical state of my life at the moment. So, yeah, I don't know, Ali, is there anything else?
No, no, that's great. That's good. We're just going to get right to it. You mentioned a surgery and you mentioned a newborn. And I think that's going to be the crux of our story today. Do you want to take us through your journey? What has been the experience? And just share your story.
Yeah, so I'll try not to go too deep quite yet. So back in 2021, I even remember it was April, so spring of 2021. I had a horrific headache. I mean, for some reason, I had this gut instinct after the headache was not going away that, I thought I was having an aneurysm actually. Um, Turned out it was similar to an aneurysm, but not quite. But I was right in a way. Something was absolutely wrong. This headache was just not going away. I was living by myself in an apartment in Philadelphia at the time. Um, and, I didn't know what to do. It was late in the night. I couldn't fall asleep. It was like 2 in the morning. So I Ubered myself to the University of Pennsylvania ER, thinking that they would send me home, as a hypochondriac. You just have a migraine or something like that. They did a CT scan and it turned out I had a vascular malformation that was on my pineal gland. So it was a midbrain malformation that was oozing. I don't remember, and I could be wrong about this because, it was so long ago, but I can't remember if it was hemorrhaging heavily. I don't think it was. I think it was oozing blood because the type that I have is, more of a slow bleed, slow form bleed rather than an aneurysm. Um, and, you know, that's what they told me. At first, they called it a mass. And then, over time, they were like, okay, this is a vascular malformation. The Penn Medicine system had just hired a vascular neurosurgeon at that time. So he was new to, I believe, the Penn Medicine system. And they just sent me home to monitor. They were like, okay, this is a really eloquent location. We're gonna just keep an eye on it. And so I just lived my life like normal. Really bizarre, I guess, that I was able to do that, but I just kind of pushed it behind me and just, acted like things were kind of normal. But then I got a phone call that just to talk through what they had found with this new vascular neurosurgeon. I don't know if I should say his name just for
That's okay.
privacy reasons,
I
right,
think,
Ali?
yeah, we can keep that anonymized.
Okay, yeah. But we talked through it, and one thing I, funny enough, mentioned was that I had a MRI from 2015. Why
Hmm.
did I have that MRI? Nothing serious. I was in college. I hit my head, and I thought, at that time in 2015, that maybe I had a concussion. That was the hypochondriac side of me. I definitely did not have a concussion, but I did have an MRI. So they were like, wow, we need to see that MRI because the type of vascular malformation I had, which I won't go into detail about either, just because it's personal, it should have been in that 2015 MRI. Like it's usually you have it like most of your life, or later I found out it was like a specific gene mutation, so like it should have been there theoretically, especially with the size that it was, and it was not. So it was a perfect, clean, amazing MRI. So that's when, things started to scramble, and it was very unusual, and Penn Medicine decided that they would like to operate. I got a ton of second opinions, one from Stanford, um, I think one from Jefferson, but it turned out that we had one of the best vascular neurosurgeons, right? So, I mean, I'm pretty close even now to Penn Medicine. I'm about a 45-minute drive, still in Pennsylvania. But, long story short, I did my due diligence of getting second opinions and just decided that the best team to do this was the team here. Now, one thing that might be an interesting topic is if I lived anywhere else,
Yeah.
what that would have looked like. And that's, I think, what had gotten me into Mission Brain. And again, without saying names, my neurosurgeon trained under Lawton, who runs, partially runs. I know there's other people involved, the Mission Brain org. So, I always thought about that. Like, what if I lived somewhere else? I mean, I don't think of the specific locations, but what if I lived somewhere else? Like, would this have been an easy experience? Probably not. What if, Penn Medicine didn't have a top expert? I probably would have had to fly to California or somewhere else, Arizona, wherever, to get this surgery done. And that would have been a nuisance and hassle. So it was a big privilege that I always think about, to be able to do this here in my hometown or area. It's not really my hometown. I grew up somewhere else, but my home area, because it made life a lot easier, even though it was very hard, of an experience. So that was my 2021 experience. I will say, just to not spend too much time on this year, 2021, I was in the neuro ICU for a long time, 17 days, 14 to 17 days. I can't really remember the number, because the vascular malformation was causing hydrocephalus. It was like pushing against one of my ventricles or something. And so that was another sense of urgency of why they wanted to operate, even though it's such a hard, like, I hope I'm saying this right, skull base location. Like they had to like go under my cerebellum and stuff. Um, but it was a successful surgery. It's just the hydrocephalus took a while to resolve, and they were about to put a shunt. I remember this vividly. They were about to put a shunt because it was not resolving. And then I even had to sign anesthesia paperwork. And I just told myself, I was like, I'm not getting another surgery after this like 12-hour operation. The next day, the hydrocephalus resolved right before I went into surgery for the shunt. So knock on wood, I was able to avoid a shunt, which would have been equally as, difficult for me. I was able to live a normal life after I got discharged, and recovery and everything was hard, but it took a while, but everything went as well as it could have, based on the location. And then flash forward in 2023. Well, I guess I'll stop there. I don't want
No,
to keep rambling. So
no. I just want to say
okay.
that it's such a difficult journey. And looking back, and you're here 3 years down or 4 years now, sitting with us, and we're having this podcast. And I can't even imagine how difficult it must have been to go through that entire process. And and you mentioned how having a neurosurgeon in your hometown and a quality vascular neurosurgeon in your hometown was a big privilege. And a lot of what Mission Brain does, and a lot of what we're trying to do with this podcast too, is to make sure or to get the message out that neurosurgery needs to be more accessible. So I just want you to touch on the idea on your interaction at Penn Medicine, how it felt as a patient going in and knowing that you'll have the best care that you can get right next door.
Um, well, it comes down to the severity of the operation, and the location of this malformation, because, I'll talk about it, but I had two other surgeries afterwards, which was, unexpected. But this was the hardest one. And, with the location, if it were to hemorrhage, it could have costed me my life. Like it was that severe of a location. And with these types of malformations that are like full of blood, you don't really know when they're gonna hemorrhage. Sometimes some don't. I mean, apparently most people that have what I have don't ever even know until, they've already they're 100 and, they don't know they ever had this. For me, like I even remember the day of my operation, or no, the day prior to my operation, I had threatened to cancel the operation because I needed to see the surgeon. I was like, I need to see him and I need him to come in today to talk to me because like I needed that sense of, again, reassurance. I mean, he had always reassured me, but I needed that again. And he came in right away and, almost with a sense of urgency, like, we got to take this out. This location is rare. It's really eloquent. I could tell that he wanted to protect my life and that he knew he could confidently take this out with minimal deficits to almost none. There was one guaranteed quote unquote deficit. It's solvable. I did come out with double vision. Every neurosurgeon I had talked to said that that would happen with this location. It's unavoidable. And that's all that happened. So I'm always thankful of how Penn Medicine treated this. The fact that they even hired someone to lead this vascular program almost serendipitously, like right before I this happened to me. It was pretty crazy. So
It was, and I just want to touch upon more on that. Any surgery is daunting, and neurosurgery is especially daunting. And you mentioned how your neurosurgeon came up to you because you want to talk to him because it's important. You want to see your doctor who's going to make your life dependent on this operation. So, and you mentioned how this doctor, it gave you the sense that the doctor really wanted to save your life and protect your life, right?
mhm,
And I want you to take it from the patient's perspective. A lot of our listeners, a lot of our viewers are medical students, future neurosurgeons, future doctors. What are things that you really liked about your neurosurgeon? And what are things that could be improved in neurosurgical care from a patient's
yeah.
perspective?
Oh yeah, so I know one of my neurosurgeon's goals is to get younger, like I don't know what to call it, residents, I guess, or
Yeah,
fellows, or
yeah.
whatever the neurosurgery process and journey is, to be more interested in vascular neurosurgery because, I think it's one of the hardest fields within neurosurgery. Like there's skull base. I mean, he's both. He's skull base and vascular. Like he did both. And I imagine like in the future when he phases out, people get old and he phases out of his career, there has to be replacements, right? The next generation that he can mentor. And I think there's a fear behind that. From what I understand, I remember a lot of the residents that would check on me, I would ask them like, "Oh yeah, are you doing vascular?" And they were like, "No, no, 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 we're not." So I think, sorry if I misunderstood your question, but I think that would be something that would be a goal, is like having more younger generations be interested in vascular specifically.
Absolutely. We had Dr. Lawton 2 episodes ago, and I wanted
Yeah.
him to, have this. And it's twofold as well, because I love neurovascular. And we want to get that message out that, right. We want to inspire, and I'm sure that episode inspired a lot of future neurovascular neurosurgeons. So that's great as well.
Mhm.
But Sheila, there's another thing that we face, and in terms of like global neurosurgery, growing and a lot of what Mission Brain does is to promote global neurosurgery and this global collaboration, right? How do you feel um, as we grow into a more global field? What needs to be the key component, or what need to be the key components to keep this field grounded in patient care and grounded in what the patient needs? We are doing a lot of innovation, but how do we do the basics right as a patient? What do you think are the most necessary things a neurosurgeon must have?
Um, I don't know. The one thing I will say that I find helpful is like not always resorting to just surgery being the solution, which again, that's already hard enough to achieve in the States. I can't imagine other countries that don't have neurosurgeons or have few, their only solution is surgery. Like in this case, I would like to see a medical system or surgeon also use like repurposed drugs, or find some sort of, like, a cure doesn't exist, right, but like find some sort of therapeutic way to address patients like me. This has become repetitive. It's been aggressive with me being so young. It's very unusual. It's very unheard of, just given how rare this malformation is already, and then all the rare locations it has happened in. Again, I can't imagine it happening in most countries. And, while it's already hard in the US to collaborate with like, sorry if I'm not saying this correctly, but like having a surgeon collaborate with like medicine
Yeah,
and bringing that together to a patient for a solution or therapy, like for therapeutic reasons. It's already hard here to get approvals and FDA clearances and all that. I can't imagine anywhere else. I think that should be like the ultimate goal in my personal opinion, because surgery is tough.
absolutely.
You survive each time.
Yeah, wonderful. And
And the goal should be a surgeon never wants to, from my understanding with mine, never wants to operate on the same patient. Like that's pretty intense for even them. Like they don't want to see, he didn't want to see me a second time or a third time. So
I mean, that's the
he
attitude.
did.
I think that's the attitude for
So,
someone who wants to, really protect your life. So, but Sheila, I want you to, we're going to segue into the next part, which is we talked about your first surgery and how grueling and how difficult 2021 was. But I want you to navigate us from having repeat surgeries to having a newborn, a new life. And how did it feel like
yeah.
looking back 2 years ago? How do you feel now about it? Becoming a mom, getting a baby in the house?
Well, there was a little bit of so when I got engaged to my now husband, in 2023, I then got diagnosed with a second malformation in my cervical spinal cord. And that was part of this journey, the whole journey of mine is like, okay, I had just recovered from this first surgery, moving on with life, got engaged, ready to plan a wedding, and then this like I had some symptoms, mild symptoms, but symptoms I questioned. And I asked my neurosurgeon, he's like, let's get an MRI of your spinal cord. It would be really rare, but let's do it. And lo and behold, he found something in my cervical spinal cord. He was confident to operate on that as well. And, my attitude through that, which I promise I'm getting to the newborn part, is that like I just was wanting to continue my life. So like I did not hesitate to continue planning a wedding with my husband. We quite literally signed the venue contract, which was at the Union League of Philadelphia in my hospital bed, because I was determined to, have a wedding and just live out my life, despite the bump in the road. So, the surgery was successful. It was about half the time of my first surgery. And, I did a little bit of OT, PT afterwards, just because, like, anytime I would imagine, I don't know a lot about neurosurgery from a schooling standpoint. I know a lot, unfortunately, through experience, but, you know, anytime your spinal cord's like tickled, I use light terms, I would imagine there's no way getting out of like, figuring out how to walk again. It's not like I didn't know how to walk again. It was more my body was just tampered with and I had to like walk through hallways just to like get reintegrated and it was fine. I after like a month I was as if you would never be able to tell I had that type of surgery. Um, so that passed. I was, then a year later I had my wedding. Again, you wouldn't really be able to unless that you had known my story, you wouldn't really be able to see it. And that's like one of the downsides of neurosurgery sometimes is like when you have a good outcome, some people don't realize how hard it still is as a patient. Like you might look normal on the outside, but there's some things you feel on the inside. Like I still have that symptom on my right leg, for example, that caused me to go get surgery because that doesn't go away. That was like a nerve thing that was already caused by the bleed that had happened in my cervical spinal cord. So it's like people don't see that and I don't walk around complaining of that. So that's one of the downsides is like there's a lot of difficulty that people just don't see. And I can imagine there's probably lots and lots of patients that go through something similar, like emotionally. And then, flash forward again to, is it 2024, I guess, just recently in November. So I had the baby, we got pregnant. She was born in September, or August 31st, I guess the last day of August. And one of the issues with my pregnancy was I was getting some focal seizures in my third trimester, and I was like, that's not normal. So something's going on. And I did not get an MRI until after I delivered. I delivered via C-section. It was not an easy birth. Everything with baby, again, knock on wood, was perfect. Um, I was, doing fine, which it was a surprise given what the outcome of the MRI was. I did take anti-seizure medication that was safe for pregnancy during my third trimester, just to kind of ease the symptoms. So that definitely played a protective role. But after I did the MRI, once she was delivered, they found a major hemorrhage in my left temporal lobe. And it was, unseen, like unheard of to have such a big hemorrhage. Like it was a new formation as well. So it was de novo, I guess it's called. Like it just came out of nowhere during my pregnancy. It was not there because I get routine MRIs. So my neurosurgeon was like blown away by it. He was like, I've never seen this. This is crazy. So, he wanted to give me the time to spend time with my newborn first. He wasn't too worried, like to treat it like an emergency. So, again, like I did with my first surgery, I kind of tried my best to just enjoy my newborn in that phase, but I never felt like I was able to have that true experience, which is okay. Always in the back of my mind, I probably need surgery. Hopefully, I wouldn't. I did end up needing surgery. I got operated on in November of this past year, and that turned out fine. I came home. We had a lot of support for the baby, so that I, didn't have to take on that. And I don't like to call it a burden, but like I did just get neurosurgery, so it's like I don't know what the proper word for it would be. I don't like the word burden, but like I did have a lot of support. My husband supported a lot, and he needed support too. We went through a lot as a family, and it's very different from just being a regular mom who has a regular newborn. There was a lot of processing, emotional processing, regulating, making sure I was calm for her. It's a girl. I don't know if I mentioned that. Her name is Lila. I know Mission Brain did like a cute post about that with me. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, I think I'm rambling, but
It's
it's a little bit of a different experience, and I use a little bit as it's a lot of a different experience than most new moms.
fantastic. We're moving to the last section of our episode. And Sheila, I just want to say that your story has been so inspiring on so many different levels. The entire process has been so grueling, but now we see you, and I know it must be very difficult even now that you're here telling your story. And I just want to ask you one final question
Hmm.
to finish up. And this is for our patients who are going through difficult times. And it is most difficult. How do you stay strong? What's your advice for patients to stay strong and to be motivated and to, look up onto the bright side of things? We all know it's very difficult, but what's your advice on that?
Yeah, I'll try not to get too spiritual or too philosophical because I
No,
tend to
please
be like
be.
that. Yeah, yeah. Something my neurosurgeon said to me recently was let it go, and he meant that in the best way possible. So I carry that with me all the time. My advice to a lot of patients would be just to let it go and not take anything seriously anymore. Once your life, it's like an existential experience, right? Like once your life is sort of in the hands of someone else, not once, not twice, three times. I mean, even once. I think a lot of patients have a lot of fear. The way I went about it was I, on a normal basis, might have some anxiety, but when I'm thrown into these experiences, I somehow don't. I'm able to sort of just like think clear, make the decision. For example, when it came down to this surgery recently, I needed maybe 5 hours to think about it. And I said, I think I messaged the Penn Medicine team saying, let's go, let's do this, let's get this out. There was no question about it. Now, he had operated on me two other times, so obviously I didn't need second opinions, but it was very easy for me to just like push everything in life aside and focus on that one thing and stay calm during all that. And it's easier. me saying this than me doing it, I guess. Somehow I was able to do that. But it's definitely not easy. And I think a lot of faith, in the universe. And again, I won't go too deep on that, but just a lot of faith that, everything happens for reasons we don't know. And something I always think about is the fact that my neurosurgeon was hired only like I think a few months before my first diagnosis. And he's like the only one that I would trust with an even pen medicine to do these operations. I don't know the other surgeons that well, but I think that, is an important acknowledgement that I have that gets me through a lot is like, there's a sense of protection that I feel in that way, that there is a team looking after me. Um, so really two pieces of advice, let it go, don't take things seriously. And then sometimes I just laugh about it now. So even just seeing the humor of things is really important as a patient.
That's wonderful. And I think that's
Mhm.
the best advice you could give to anyone, not just patients, to let it go. And I think that should be the title of this episode as well. Let it go. Maybe that's a good suggestion
Let
as
it
well.
go. The song, there's a song I think called Let It Go.
But I just want to, from the bottom of my heart and from the bottom of the Mission Brain team, thank you for coming here and taking out the time to share your journey, share your story, and to share the story of baby Lila as well. All of us
Yeah,
love her at Big Mission Brain.
she's
And we
very
like to call her Mission
cute.
Brain Baby as well. So she's very special
Yes.
to us, and you're very special to us. And we also want to take this opportunity to thank the neurosurgeon at Penn and to all the neurosurgeons who do such amazing work. So thank you so much, Sheila, and we'll see you
Thank you,
guys,
Ellie.
back on the next episode.